Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're wondering what was happening tonight on Sportswire Radio. We were supposed to go on. We were supposed to talk. We were supposed to get you ready for a company that is definitely going to show us why we're the kings of underground wrestling here, and not too far from my stomping grounds here in the Big Apple in Connecticut. But I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. Maybe you're bummed about your picks here in the NFL. Maybe you're wondering why did Impact go back to TNA. Forget all that, because our guest tonight is the man behind a company that I promise you, starting on January the 6th, is really going to take the wrestling world and the underground wrestling world by storm, coming up here, especially in Connecticut itself. And while he's been on here before, he didn't get that introduction that he had on here the first time. He's done a phenomenal job here establishing himself over the past few years in the wrestling world, and especially in the backyard and underground wrestling world. He is the man behind TF Crew. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, he needs no further introduction, but because many of his colleagues and some of the people that he was on with on Sportswire, who may even show up on January the 6th, have gotten an introduction, it is now time for him to get that same introduction. So with that, wait for it, further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, the owner of the TF Crew, Gabe Sayers. My friend, how are you?
I'm sick as hell, but I'm doing good to be here tonight.
You know, I just got over that sick feeling. This is the first time in over a month that I have just about, I still have like a little thing in my head, but for the most part, a normal day. So I certainly understand. I sympathize where you've been. So I hope you feel better.
I appreciate that.
I hope you're not going to be as sick as long as I was. But obviously, I've got comments in here. I'll say hello to people shortly. Obviously, even some friends in the UK I see have tuned in here, are recent champions in a company that we do some work with. But, you know, Gabe, I've had you on here before, but now we can talk a little bit more because things are coming up here January the 6th, the North Haven Massacre. But before we get there, for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station, you, my friend, tell us why this unhinged episode coming up here in a few days this week is going to continue to lead as to why you guys are going to be the kings of underground at the North Haven Massacre on the 6th of January.
So this next episode we got up Unhinged coming out in a couple days. It's just like an entirely super fun episode. We have our world champion, the Puerto Rican Prince. You know, the syndicate.
I'm getting to him. I'm going to get to him.
The syndicate. They're not around right now, so he had to do some deep recruiting to find some partners for the 6-man tag match, and they're going against the formidable Leonidas. Doc Holliday. Now, Doc Holliday, legend in himself, 20-year veteran of just everywhere, backyard, underground, pro, everything.
Name's definitely familiar. Yep.
And then the young and upcoming Caster, who Caster's like one of his biggest notes in the TF Crew is in his first ever match, he lost a hair versus hair match. In his second, I think what's his second ever match, he got knocked out by the Puerto Rican Prince in 15 seconds. 15
Oh,
seconds.
wow. 15. You know, I think was it Friday? I had Brogan O'Shea on. He talked about, I think, being in a match that went 21 seconds, but 15. I mean, boy, that's almost like I don't even know if you blink. I guess maybe Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch was about 15 seconds.
Yeah, flying knees and a couple bangs on the back of the head, and that's it. He's out cold. So
yep.
This is gonna be really fun. It's the only match on the entire episode. All of our episodes are 25 minutes long. 6-man tag, the Puerto Rican Prince versus Doc Holliday, Leonidas, Caster. We have a bunch of promos also to help out the show. You get some more hype up for the North Haven Massacre coming January 6th, and you're gonna get to learn a little bit about the interminglings of these teams that are created for the 6-man tag. So I like fast-paced episodes. I have ADHD myself, so just sit through it and enjoy. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to say, and I don't know if I said this last month, but I do appreciate the fact that the shows are about 25 minutes long because, sometimes you get these shows and it's almost like they run a show. It's like the Super Bowl. It's like, all right,
Oh
when
my
I got to
God,
see the
yeah.
commercials, I got to sit through the matches. Now, obviously, look, XCW does it perfectly. I love XCW, but some of the other companies, they'll make you sit through 2-hour, 3-hour shows, and it's like recycled promos and it's recycled Viginites, and it's like, all right, well, listen, let's get to the point. So, I mean, obviously, kick the ballistics here for a second. I appreciate the fact that you guys do have these short form kind of things because it lets everybody kind of go and learn and go along and follow what you guys are doing here.
Right. Yeah, I've always been a big believer of the short, term episodes because, like we all said, it's like sometimes with people with shorter attention spans. But it's
oh my God,
like,
especially me, because I have all these wrestling companies on from around the world.
Oh yeah.
I don't just do backyard. I don't just do underground. I do independent wrestling. I do British wrestling, and when I'm obviously more available, which is going to come up here in about 2 weeks, I literally have to watch probably like 40 hours a week worth of wrestling. So
Right.
I appreciate that you're not adding too much onto my burden.
Yeah, that's the goal. You know what I mean? Is because wrestling as a whole is an oversaturated product right now.
Yep.
Seems like everybody's getting their camera and getting what they believe is a ring, and maybe is not a ring, etc., and like filming stuff, which is great. I love the more wrestling, the better. But it
Sure.
has slightly becomes oversaturated, so we just want to do it differently. You know what I mean? Like high quality graphics. Quick but fun, energetic, exciting shows. You know what I mean? We're in and out with a punch. That's our kind of our thing, especially with our TV episodes.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, again, sometimes, you spoke about the saturation and there is a lot of wrestling out there. Certainly wrestling, you could say theoretically is in a boom, especially in the underground level and the YouTube level, whatever, the semi-pro level, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely a boom here. But do you feel like pressure in trying to stand? Because you guys in a short amount of time have almost 2,000 subscribers, and obviously we'll put the links up here in a second for people to join in. I mean, do you feel pressure in terms of trying to stand out in this market that has, a who's who of companies all over the place,
Now, I did in the beginning feel pressure to stand out, and then I realized how well we already just stand out. So the pressure was kind of elevated because I look at my roster and it's just such a diverse group of people with such a diverse group of backgrounds, and I absolutely know that my roster is just like top notch, and they help us just stand out on our own. We stand out with something I hate in wrestling is bad graphics. Man, bad graphics. You know what I mean? I one thing I will say is, maybe some of our older graphics aren't perfect, but I mean, like our newer graphics now, I mean, like they're there, you know what I mean? They're good looking graphics, and something like that can add so much to the atmosphere of a show, to the vibe you're getting from a show. You know what I mean? We are the underground. Our TV graphics are black and white match cards. You know what I mean? It's quick. We're to the punch, and I wholeheartedly do feel like we stand out especially because of the range of talent we have. I mean, we have guys like Obey, like Jimmy Controversy, who are on the roster who just competed in the Carnage Cup in Tennessee. Carnage Cup is a huge, long-running deathmatch tournament. They just competed in the Carnage Cup. But then we have guys all the way down that are like Christopher Black, who are from one small backyard company in New Haven, Connecticut. It's such a range of guys, and everybody's kind of intermingling and helping create this extremely unique and different product.
Let me ask you a question, because you brought up Doc Holliday, and obviously this is a guy that has a wealth of experience, and he has certainly experienced a lot. With a guy like that, and I know obviously you're learning, you're also training. We'll get into your story a little further in a little while, but do you rely on him a lot in terms of his experience, in terms of maybe the product or his ideas? Again, I always find it fascinating when a company has a veteran of that magnitude. I mean, I'm curious on that for a little bit.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about Doc is some people, when they are a veteran of that magnitude, their performance goes down. You know what I mean? There's no other way to say it. But
they're
Doc,
mailing it in. They've got their opinion. They're set in their ways. Sure.
Exactly. With Doc, his performance is there every single time. Even he won't say it's ever it is. He's always like, well, 5 years ago I was doing triple backflips off the building. I'm like, you don't have to do that anymore. That's okay.
Well, I mean, listen, PCO. If anybody watched Bound for Glory, this
PCO.
guy's like 60, and this guy is like Moose put him through, I think, like thumbtacks onto the like outside the ring. So some guys do feel like they need to keep pushing the envelope, I guess.
He Doc Holliday, such a legend. He'll do a moonsault to the outside, a Canadian destroyer on the outside. He'll do all this crazy shit and be like, I could have done a 450 to the outside. I'm kind of old. I'm like, you don't have to. You're exciting as hell, man. Like you don't have to. I think we dubbed Doc Holliday our head coach. Doc Holliday is obviously a legend of this game. He helps train the talent. He's a producer for matches. He helps creatively. I mean, Doc Holliday is one of the. We have like a core 5 staff team, and Doc Holliday is certainly a part of that. He's there every day when we're breaking down the ring or we're setting up the ring somewhere. We're doing anything. Doc is always like, "Yep, I'm there. Whatever you need." You know what I mean? And he's there. He's the head coach, training the new guys, helping produce matches, helping just creatively. When I'm like, I don't know what to do with these guys. He's like, "Well, let's slow down. Let's think about this." You know what I mean? His veteran knowledge certainly is helpful and beneficial.
How much does that mean to you in having somebody like that at that level? It's one thing that you have him, and okay, let's say you're using him, he's one of your top guys, and you're putting him and showcasing him because of the name. But I'm curious in terms of like how much does that mean for a company like this in a short amount of time to have his stamp of approval and saying, hey, you know what, I'm here, I'm ready to join in.
It means the world. We have a lot of trust in each other. I think we've become very close in a very quick amount of time. We ended up traveling together all last summer before I got my open heart surgery with wrestling.
Wow, okay.
Me, him, and Eddie Exile. So shout out to Eddie Exile as well. We were like a little 3-man traveling crew going to different wrestling places. We became very close very quickly because we're very like minded within the wrestling business. He calls me the oldest rookie of all time. I'm 20. I've only been in the wrestling, actually in the wrestling business for about a year and a half.
But 20, I speak to guys all the time. I know you're going to say, you're only 20, but I've interviewed guys, at least in the UK, and I see my buddy Matt Royale, the Nonstop Action Wrestling Youngblood champion, was in here. And there are guys I know that was started out wrestling at 12, no joke. I mean, a couple of guys I interviewed. My guest on Monday, Callum Majakster, started wrestling, I think, at 11. I had a guy 2-Bit on who's been on Progress, which is on the WWE Network. That's kind of like Progress. The UK. Yeah, and he started at like 12. So, I mean, 20, in wrestling, it's really like you could have experience at 20. Wrestling is not like, if you were in sports, they'd say, well, boy, you're really a green rookie. But in wrestling, you always can't say that.
I wish that I started when I was 11 or 12. I don't
know if you'd want to, though. But
it's a fair point. I still consider myself a rookie just because I haven't been around the wrestling business that long. I may be 20 years old, but I was just a fan for so long of those 20 years that, and me and Doc's ideas, we're able to mesh them together really well. And we have similar views on how to like push the company forward on social media, just with venues, everything. I mean, we come together very well. We have a great line of communication, and he's an uber amount of help. He doesn't let my youth be an excuse for anything, financial decisions, anything. If I do something wrong, he'll let me hear it. But it's the kind of accountability that we have that's really kept the group real tight.
Absolutely. Listen, integrity, accountability, all that stuff is extremely important. I want people to follow the TF Crew and join them on Instagram, YouTube at TF Crew 69. We'll certainly leave out the 69 joke out, but we want people to subscribe to the YouTube page of the TF Crew. We're a family station anyway on Sportswire. I have too many supporters out there that would say, what are you doing? But I do want to formally say hello to Mr. Matt Royale and congratulate him. He won the Nonstop Action Wrestling Youngblood Championship, and I'm sure we'll have him back on Sportswire in the month of November. I want to say hello here to Mr. X Elite, and I think he's got tons of comments here. My ears from the intro. I think he meant to say, wow, TF Crew. Want to say hello to Dirty Donnie of the IMF. Obviously, the guys introduced us to each other, so we say hello to them. Also, Spectrum Chaos. Oh, the Gabe Sayers. So I think that's a new one here. And we have here somebody else, TF Crew 100. My buddy, Mr. Ace Reed, from the Wired Up podcast from Australia, up again at 11:30, saying hello as usual. My other buddy from XCW, whose father-in-law is Festus Davis, a referee in that company, Mr. Michael Blackheart, who had some video I saw on Facebook, and I was like, what is he doing on that video? And I just didn't have time to look at it. Maybe I should have, but I'll let Michael explain that later on. Okay, so obviously we've got some of that stuff out of the way. Let's talk about the champion and the Puerto Rican Prince, Angel Santiago. When I first heard the name Angel Santiago, I was like, you know what, for a brief period, for almost about a year during COVID, I was actually involved in college baseball. I was, quote unquote, a front office person. I was trying to recruit these kids to play in almost kind of like a summer league for college and prospective college players. And I was like, no, that's not that Angel Santiago. This guy you've got is far more charismatic. This guy you've got is far more strong. This guy's got far more of a bigger head on his shoulders. And that's why he's your TF Crew YouTube champion of the world. And we're going to see him, and I'm sure the rest of Syndicate, coming up here on the 6th of January against Obey. So you have to talk about almost the Tony Montana, like YouTube champion of the TF Crew, Mr. Angel Santiago.
The Puerto Rican Prince is such a person.
This guy's got some real grapefruits, as they would say.
He's something else. He's a partier. He's loud. He's obnoxious. But my God, it's he has the combat background. I believe it's Muay Thai background.
Yeah, I was watching some of his stuff in the ring with you guys, and I wouldn't want to mess with him.
No, the Muay Thai background is very serious. I do mean that as from experience. Sure. Me and Angel have never had a match together. Luckily for him, he's evaded me long enough. But once I'm all healed up, he won't be able to evade me anymore. But such a surprise. Not a lot of people were expecting to see him become the new YouTube world champion for the TF Crew. He, before this, really his only experience in other backyard companies was BWO. And something that we talked a lot about in not only the build up to this big YouTube title match at the Backyard Bash where he won, was that this is a little different. We dubbed this the underground. This is where he's interacting with people that have been professionally trained for 20 years. He's interacting with people who maybe someone just started wrestling yesterday. You know what I mean? This is such a different atmosphere than he's used to at his home yard company that unfortunately did end. But he was actually able to come home with it. And the Puerto Rican Prince is just extremely dangerous. The entire group around him, he is what a manipulator he is. I mean, he has that British manager that's named like Harvey Duplock.
I did notice that. I'm like, this is a company I should be covering them because obviously I cut my teeth in the British wrestling scene now for, I think, about 3 years. So I'm like, oh, well, have I seen this guy somewhere before and I missed him?
Yeah, Harvey Duplock is his. He does. The thing is, the Puerto Rican Prince knows this. He doesn't need, a voice. He doesn't need someone to talk for him. But Puerto Rican Prince knows that two voices is more obnoxious than one. So that's where he brings around Duplock. And he's got a real dangerous group. That syndicate group that he puts together, Lucas Greifsue, one of his closest friends from the BWO, from that original company that he's from. Christopher Black, who's just a mauler from NHW in New Haven. And a mauler. When he recruited Christopher Black on an episode of Unhinged after they had pretty much a glorified jiu-jitsu match. I mean, just trading holds after holds into separate. And I mean, it was just jiu-jitsu. Christopher Black is extensive in jiu-jitsu, and he was recruited into the syndicate for that reason. And then he has Roach.
Yes. A man you know very well. You've had some history with Roach.
Yeah, me and Roach have bled together once or twice, and I think
I've seen that actually. I have seen that.
Yeah. It's such a diverse group, and they're still actively recruiting, which makes it scary. And like I've seen they are running roughshod on my company right now, and I do acknowledge that. From the owner aspect, I do understand that he's like I said, running roughshod on this company. He owns that title. I mean, he's knocked down every challenger that he's had for the belt so far, which was Christopher Black, where he recruited him. Leonidas, who's on like the top of the power rankings right now. Yep. Obviously, he beat Donnie Max for the title. I mean, he's running through his challengers in a very quick time. And unfortunately, I guess the only thing I can negatively say about it, I think he parties too much. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting drunk promos, and I'm like, man, I think you party too much. So, and I think that partying is going to get put to an end by Obey. Obey.
I think so, though. I mean, so far he's been running roughshod. I mean, I would agree in theory that okay, maybe the partying wouldn't work, but it's kind of worked for him so far. Sometimes you see it all the time. I've interviewed a lot of guys in sports, and there were certain guys I'd have on. And they would say, well, I would party until 2, 3 in the morning, and then I would actually get up and I would go out there and I felt fine. I mean, some people maybe rise to the occasion in this. I mean, so maybe it's working for them.
I don't think it will. Just
Mm-hmm.
that's my personal. I think Obey is gonna come and humble him very quickly.
Mm.
Obey is dubbed the walking horror film. Obey came from a man named Damian Blanco. Damian Blanco was, a great competitor here at the TF crew, here on the independent scene, here at places like UWF and everything. And then he started messing around with witchcraft, and now
Wow, witchcraft,
yeah,
boy.
his entire face is painted. Every time he comes to the ring, he'll leak blood out of his mouth all over himself. Obey is the walking horror film, and I don't think the Puerto Rican Prince is taking this challenge to heart. You know what I mean? To him, this
Yeah.
is just another defense. This is just another notch on his belt. But I think that Obey is somebody that will very, very quickly humble you. And now I've wrestled Damian Blanco twice, the alter ego. So Obey is a whole different monster, a
It's
whole
almost
different
kind of
breed.
like Abyss, where there was like multiple stages of Abyss, or
Yeah,
it's kind of got that vibe a little bit, where it's just almost like we. There's a wrestler I've interviewed in the UK. And if Matt Royale is still here, he'll know about it. It's a guy. His name is Rarebit. Rarebit would put the mask on, and he would all of a sudden be totally like unleashed. He would like sort of think about doing the right thing, but then once all of a sudden he gets into that character, it's like that's it. Can't stop him. Even next CW, there with Trinity, who does announcing there when she was wrestling, was almost like the same thing. She would be fine, and all of a sudden she'd get into Trinity, and it was like that's it.
yeah.
Okay, so he's kind of one of those type of characters then.
Obey, yeah, and he is insane. I mean, he competes in death matches very often. That's one of it. But he's not just a death match wrestler. I've wrestled him in both death matches and
Sure.
non-death matches. I
Well, I
can say
don't
he's
think. Listen, I always give credit to if you're going to go out there in a death match. And I have spoke to a lot of guys. Chances are you actually have wrestled in other matches too. People look at it
yo
like
yeah
they automatically kind of dismiss the death match wrestler. But trust me, they don't just start overnight in death matches.
yeah I yeah. So he does both, but obviously this is not a scheduled death match. But I mean, something he does is he goes to the ring barefoot. So does the Puerto Rican Prince. But the difference with Obey is Obey does his death matches barefoot. And you know that the ring will get covered in glass, thumbtacks, barbed,
Uh,
whatever, and
there's
just
a
he'll
couple
he'll
people
walk around in it.
that's so fascinating as we're here speaking with Gabe Sayers. Obviously, Gabe is the owner of the TF Crew. And of course, you can follow the TF Crew here on Instagram at TF Crew, YouTube at TF Crew 69. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sports Radio. I actually saw a guy here in Brooklyn on the legendary 18th Avenue yesterday. And he was actually walking around in barefoot. And another guy I used to know as a kid, he looked like when I was growing up in Brooklyn, he looked like Santa Claus. He literally looked like Santa Claus, but he wasn't Santa Claus. He would walk around the entire year barefoot, but to wrestle in death matches, other matches in barefoot, that's a totally different discussion there, Gabe Sayers.
You're nuts. I agree. Wholeheartedly agree. His pain tolerance. He just actually went out into the Carnage Cup in the Carnage Cup tournament, which is like I said, is a long running illustrious deathmatch tournament. That's I think this is Carnage Cup 13.
Oh,
A
wow.
lot of legends have come out of that. Like Schlack has competed in it. He's a big
Okay.
deathmatch name. I believe Moxley actually competed in it
Oh,
back in the
wow.
day.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, very
Yeah, I
illustrious.
was supposed to interview one of my buddies as a filmmaker who had wrestled. He was trained by a guy, Dean Allmark, who had wrestled in TNA years ago. I was saying TNA again, and I was supposed to interview through him somebody that was a deathmatch guy. He was supposed to be like the deathmatch like god. I mean, everybody's a deathmatch god these days, but just that was kind of my automatic
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, Obey won his first round match. Unfortunately, lost the second round match. But to even like win a round in the Carnage Cup, such an illustrious deathmatch tournament, barefoot. His first match was a flaming razor wire sickle, and I forgot the last part. But flaming razor wire was the main theme of the match, and he's just running around barefoot, having the time of his life. And I'm like, oh my god, and wow, yeah. I think the Puerto Rican Prince is taking him way too lightly. I think that once he steps in the ring and once Obey hits him once or twice, and I can vouch that a hit from Obey is like a knockout shot almost every time. You have to watch your chin almost every time you're wrestling him.
Oof.
I think it's a wake up call. I think it'll sober him up real quick.
Well, we're gonna certainly find out. I have some more comments. Let me get to people. And Michael wants to say the video I was either doing was the dishes, cleaning, or wrestling with my kids. Maybe it was all of the above. I have no idea. I mean, all three of those things I have zero experience in. But then I'm basically out and about all these days. I always tell people I'm not quite a traveling suitcase, but basically I basically am occupied almost the entire day. So I basically don't know any of those things. But I appreciate that you're doing them, Michael, doing well for me. He also wants to compliment you on the background items.
Thank you.
I said, yes, what are the background items?
My tapestries. Yeah, I got two tapestries up.
Okay.
I wish I could anglist. I have a whole little shelf dedicated to wrestling stuff. So I have like an
Oh
XPW
wow.
hat over there. There's an old signed Hulk Hogan card,
Oh
some
wow.
old wrestling DVDs, some gusset plates, a kendo stick. I call it my little wrestling corner. But the tapestries look nice enough for now.
Yeah, as a kid, I actually had a tapestry. I had Angus Young of AC/DC, nothing like that. That was when I was trying to play the guitar and stuff and try that world. But no, but the tapestries are nice. I appreciate that. Let's move on
Appreciate that.
from that. And he also says, "Who is your? I don't know why this comes up. Who was your favorite jobber in wrestling? Mine personally is Barry Horowitz. The man was gifted. I'll let you ask it if you answer it if you want. I mean,
Oh,
although
of
I
course.
don't know what's it relevant to.
My favorite, a general answer, and I'll give a TF career answer. My general answer would be probably. Oh, that's tough. There's so many I'm thinking of right now. You know what? I'll pay homage to one of my current trainers, Mario Mancini, who gave
I
the
know that name very well.
Undertaker.
He used to be superstar, sure, in those wrestling challenge days. Know him very well.
Yeah, Mario Mancini, who gave the Undertaker his first ever win on Raw, is actually one of my trainers now. So I'll say Mario Mancini for that one, and then for TF Crew, there's a guy named Pepsi Man. Let me tell you,
I was going to save that, but maybe Michael has watched the product. Maybe there's a catch here, but I actually have watched Pepsi Man because he was in the last match you could see with Unhinged, and I
yeah,
mean, like Pepsi can literally, he's Pepsi Man, Pepsi can. He's got the Pepsi can. He's the Pepsi Man, and like you have to talk. I guess maybe we should talk about Pepsi Man because he's literally like the walking Pepsi.
0-2,
I'm
0-3
actually
record,
having
I
a
think.
Pepsi right now in my big goal. What a small
Yeah,
world.
I think he just like he got like his Pepsi senses are like going off right now.
I'm a
After
Pep.
the
I
wrestling.
do lean Pepsi, so I have to say I do lean Pepsi.
Yeah, Pepsi Man's debut in the TF Crew was against Blackout.
Yes.
Blackout doesn't have a nickname. He's just Blackout. He's 6'8", 375 pounds. There's no need for a nickname when you're that big. And Blackout famously used the Diet Pepsi can against him, which really
Oh well,
rewarded
if
him.
you use the Diet Pepsi can, forget about it. I mean, Diet Pepsi is like the worst thing on the face of the earth to even
Yeah,
drink. So maybe that was a good idea.
I agree. So that unfortunately led to Pepsi Man's loss in about
Oh,
2-3 minutes,
oh my
maybe.
God. I mean, Diet Pepsi and Diet Coke. I mean, not that I'm really a diet soda drinker, but
No, I'm not either.
Diet Pepsi is like awful. I remember as a kid, my father would sometimes have Diet Pepsi, and I would like, hey, why don't you drink Diet Pepsi? And like, I'd rather drop dead. I mean,
Yeah,
but
I hate diet soda, so
yeah,
I
yeah,
100% agree. Yeah.
yeah. Well, you know
Um,
what? I could see why. But go ahead, continue.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like Pepsi Man, absolute specimen. He tries. He really does try, but I don't. Maybe one day he'll win. We can all hope. That's
Yeah,
about the
you
best
know
I
what?
can do
Listen,
for him.
things do happen. I mean, obviously, he mentions Barry Horowitz, and Barry Horowitz eventually won on Raw. I mean, Heath Slater lost like 1,000 matches for a while. Kurt Hawkins was on a losing streak. Some more recent jobbers. I
Yeah,
mean, they really aren't jobbers, but they had those long losing streaks. I mean, technically, John
right,
Cena hasn't won a match in 5 years. I mean, do we call John
right.
Cena a jobber? I mean, there's definitions of that. I mean, so I was throwing names out there. So I mean, I obviously had some of this in the cards, but. Want to say hello to Skulls the Soul Hunter out there from the state of California. I'll have some coverage out from a promoter in the state of California very soon. He says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Just got a break from working a triple show." Now, who was on the triple show? Who do I know that I've interviewed or spoke to? I'd be curious on that. And he also says, YERR, without revealing who this person is, we'll say hello. I don't
That
want
is
to tip.
that he's saying year.
Oh, whatever it might be. I mean, I just don't know at this point. And I always think about those guys willing to put others over for a living. Wrestling is always about giving back. Okay, let me ask you a general question on that because I don't want to turn this into like memory lane and WWE and jobbers, but I'll come back to no. And I love Michael's great. Michael's one of my biggest supporters in XCW.
Mm-hmm.
His father-in-law is a referee there, and they've obviously done a lot for me personally. They plug my shows, but let me come back to TF Crew in a second. And wrestling is about giving back. So what do you want to accomplish? I know I had you on before, but what do you want to accomplish here, especially with the North Haven massacre and building up to that? What would you like to? You're starting out in the business.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously learning, but you have this big show coming up on the 6th of January. What do you want to do?
I think this is our chance to really like put ourselves on the map, make people be like, oh, okay, that's that show in New Haven, because that's where we all run in like the North Haven, New Haven, West Haven area.
Yep.
I want people to go, okay, that's that show, because we have a warehouse now. Indoor buildings just always look better than an outdoor venue, like 90% of the time. And I think with the talent that's on the show and the talent that we have to announce, and even the talent we've already announced, I think this is like the opportunity where we really set ourselves apart from not only a lot of the wrestling in this area, but wrestling as a whole. Northeast has a lot of great wrestling and a lot of really bad wrestling.
Yeah, we were speaking about this the first time you came on, and it's like, you think about like Connecticut and like kind of, because we're kind of in the same area in a way, and you don't really hear a lot like about like our area in terms of like underground wrestling, let's say. I don't know like what it is. I was saying when you came on the first time, it was like, well, in New York City, I could see why, because we really don't have backyards. We really don't have that kind of ability to set things up. But even in places like Connecticut, Delaware, I think about places you're nearby. Certainly New Jersey has some of it. But when I think about places like Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, where you are kind of more, I guess, like Northeast in a way, kind of like the Delaware Water Gap kind of thing. I know you're a little bit further away from that. There really isn't like what you're trying to do really isn't at the forefront as much.
I will vouch. I think it's in Maryland or Delaware. I don't exactly remember where they're at.
Well, Maryland, I got Maryland covered because DBW has got that. But the other places, I don't see it as much.
I think it's Delaware then. It's a WTW. They're called. They're White Trash Wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very much underground deathmatch oriented product. Way more deathmatch than we are at the TF Crew. But just a quick plug for them. It's I think the issue, a lot of it is it's almost like a lack of marketing, because I feel like I don't see a lot of these Northeast wrestling companies interact with any other companies that aren't in the Northeast, like NEW in Massachusetts. Yeah, NEW in Massachusetts. I participate in their roster a lot. They have their core guys, and they don't really just. I don't see them interact a lot in other places. And I think maybe it's like marketing, maybe it's just your people. I don't know. But I want people to go, oh yeah, that's TF Crew. They're in Connecticut. Like, I want people to know where we are by the end of the show. I think we're gonna make a statement with the show. Like I said, with the variety of talent and the crazy things to expect on the show, I think this is very much a show where we really set who we are. And I think this is also a show where I feel the need to carry on some federations that have really helped me. UWF in 6 days will be having their last ever show. It got pushed back towards for rain. So UWF, which is a deathmatch.
Yeah, the weather, if it was a weekend show, the weekends here, because I think we're kind of in the same area. There was something, I was speaking with a lady earlier this weekend. I think it was in New York. It was 11 of the last 13 days before today rained. So if you were outdoors wrestling on the weekends here in the Northeast, chances are it rained. So you couldn't do anything.
Exactly. So UWF is coming up, and I have a good amount of guys coming. Not a good amount. I have a couple guys that aren't retiring coming to TF Crew now. Most of them are retiring, so I also feel a little bit of a need to like help represent some of those guys, because those guys really helped me, and they helped the underground wrestling business as a whole. Another one would be WZW in upstate New York, Amsterdam.
Yes, WZW I know of. WCW I definitely know. WZW.
Mark Halstead, their owner, just a fantastic guy. I have no other way to put it. He was so.
Yeah, I feel like I know WZW from some of the DBW guys. That company I definitely know very well. And obviously, I've done some work. My guest last week was with the RWA, which is rebranding. So I know that area has a little bit of it. Sure.
Those are just great people who helped me immensely, and it looks like we're actually going to be buying the ring from WZW. So it's more just motivation to help kind of carry on their legacy, help kind of continue them just in a little bit. You know what I mean?
Hopefully they gave you a discount.
Yeah, I'm cheap. I am a stubborn cheap man. I'm in college. I'm a broke college
I know.
kid.
That's why I would say, if it was me, I'd say, all right, I got deep pockets. I could probably cover whatever you want. But these things are very expensive. Having a wrestling ring setting up, it's really, make sure they give you a discount on that and some. So, I really appreciate all that stuff. Let's certainly say hello to some more people. Proud of you, King. Yes, you are going to be the king, or already the king of underground wrestling. So I appreciate you tuning in. Skulls wanted to tell me Vito. Yes, my boy Vito Fratelli, who's in the PWI 500. Shout out to Vito. Enoch the Enlightened, who owes me an appearance on Sportswire, who canceled on me last month, and then I haven't had the time to bring him back on. Gangrel, another guy like PCO. This guy, Gangrel, is wrestling more now than when he was in his prime. I feel like
Yep.
when Gangrel was like, because I have so many friends who are, not so many, but a fair amount who are in the independents, and a few of them are promoters, and I see Gangrel showing up. I feel like I see Gangrel more than I did 20 years ago. So
Oh
thank
yeah.
you, Skulls, for all of that. But we are on Sportswire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us, you can check us out anytime on YouTube at Sportswire Radio. You can also listen to us anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on the temporary link. If you have a podcast, you want to play it, we can also play it on here for you free of charge. No anything else. I'll handle all that stuff. You can also check us out on Instagram at the Sports Report 2021, Facebook at Sportswire Radio. We'll have more coverage coming up here Monday night and Tuesday night with a back-to-back worth of shows from DBW, Dominant Breakout Wrestling. We'll have on the Bone Shaker. The Bone Shaker will be here about 9:30 tomorrow. Yeah, he looks like a Bone Shaker. And then Tuesday night, I have on the reigning, defending DBW champion of the world in his victory speech. Mr. Judgment himself has returned, and the champion has a lot to say, a few different things that he wants to get off his chest, and he'll be here about 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. But right now, we're here with Mr. Gabe Sayers, and you can follow Gabe also because he's got social media. You want to check him out. He's on Instagram at Gabe Sayers DW, Gabe Sayers DW, and also one more time, throughout the show, we'll plug it anyway. TF Crew, Instagram TF Crew, YouTube TF Crew 69. So we're having a good time here. Also, he wants to say Brian Kendrick, who I think had some problems and got fired, right? He had a WWE job as an agent or something, and he got fired, and he said something that he probably shouldn't have said. But thankfully, we're not going to have any of those problems here. But, I got to bring it up here, Gabe, because we had you on a few weeks ago with the guys in the IMF, but you kind of touched upon it. You had this open heart issue, and you want to come back in the ring. Now, a lot of guys have injuries and they come back, but an open heart, I think, is even in some ways, not that it's more dangerous, but it's certainly more delicate than, let's say, having a neck injury or a back injury to recover from. Open heart. And a guy like you, you're only 20 years old. You're basically, a young boy. You're still, not that you're a young boy, but, my point, you're 20 years old and you still have the whole life ahead of you, and you're going to come back to the ring. And anybody who hasn't watched you in the ring, you don't just go out there and do punching kicks. You go out there and you've put your body through a lot in a short amount of time. So talk about, why are you so eager, though, to come back after the open heart? And do you have anything in the back of your mind that would almost say, you know what? I don't know if I want to come back after something like this.
There's always that itch in the back of my mind that's always like, man, the bumps, the bumps will get tiring, you know what I mean? And they hurt over and over again. But at the end of the day, my passion for professional wrestling as a whole is just way too great I can't ever just stay away, unfortunately. And I know myself too well. I am an addict to the business. I know that I need wrestling. And obviously, I know I won't be able to wrestle forever, but I need wrestling in general to kind of keep me going. It keeps me motivated, keeps me on track. And just getting back in the ring, it's that physical outlet. I don't really have that physical outlet right now, and I miss it dearly. Nothing, when you're having a bad day, nothing makes you feel better like forearming someone in the jaw. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to let it out. And that's what the beauty of professional wrestling has been. I think I'm actually going to come back a much better wrestler, though. I am much more honed now. I have the horses have blinders when they're racing. I have the blinders on. I know what I have to do. I have a mission. I have the passion of the mission, and I know exactly how I'm going to achieve it. I think so.
Yeah, I listen. I think it's amazing that you're going to come back with this. But sometimes people say, I don't know. I had this traumatic experience, and I don't know if it's for me. So you basically have no doubts whatsoever. You'll be able to go out and do what you need to do almost.
Yeah, no doubts. That's first you have to believe in yourself. That's always step one. And I wholeheartly believe in myself. And I know what I bring to the wrestling table, and I know how much I have to learn and how much better I'm going to get. I am a little bit of an old school styled wrestler.
I've seen you in the ring. I can see that a little bit.
I blame my trainers, blame myself, because at the end of the day, when I started yarding, I had nothing but YouTube searches. I'm like, how do you do this? You know what I mean? I wholeheartedly believe that when I come back, I'm going to come back a lot better. I think a lot more exciting too, because I know that the heart issues also slowed me down a lot. Stamina wise, made me feel more scared to take risks that I normally should and would take. So, with that out of the way, I feel much more I feel safer now. And even if I'm going to do some crazy dumb shit, I feel that I'm going to be safer while doing it because I do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, you know what? Conversely, you can say, well, you know what? You should go out and do what you love. Conversely, you should go out there and be able to do what you want to do. And, you should not live your life in fear. And listen, I was telling somebody the other day that you can cross the street and something could happen to you. You could go out and, something random can happen. So, why not go out there and continue to do some of the things? But, before I get to more comments, you talked about obviously you started in the yard and now you're learning formally from Mario Mancini. Obviously, Mario Mancini is a name most wrestling fans will know if they watch the WWE Network or it's on Peacock now these days. I have a way to get the feed worldwide, but that's not here about me. It's about you. And, how has it been making the transition from being a guy that learned in the yard to now going into being trained by a legitimate guy that, was basically got a resume, which if I'm not mistaken, I think he's in a Hall of Fame somewhere. So it tells you that,
Yeah.
this is like a big deal to have him as your trainer. But talk about that transition from
So
learning in the yard to now.
I was lucky. So when I trained at PAPW, that's the training school, I trained under Mario Mancini and Paul Roma.
Okay.
Mario Mancini is like the sweet uncle, and Paul Roma is like your abusive dad. And so I was lucky enough that I actually started going there early enough into my wrestling career where they were able to kind of teach some bad things out of me before they became habits. I actually knew how to bump prior, like professionally bump prior to getting there, and that's not from backyard. That's not from any wrestling matches that you can find on YouTube. That is purely of watching Al Snow on YouTube with his little training like videos he had. I go downstairs on my concrete floor, put my little pad out, and I just bump and I'd bump, and I'd be like, oh no, that one didn't feel right. Bump again, you know what I mean? And I would just over and over again the repetition until I learned. And but it's been it definitely was a little bit of a jump going there, and especially in the aspect of they found a lot of my wrestling that I do. They obviously don't like deathmatch because they're old, people.
Yeah,
And
they're
I
very
love them,
like,
but
yeah.
yeah. They're like, oh, you really took that bundle of light tubes to the back hard, and he's like, I hope that doesn't hurt when you take a bunch of bumps, and I'm like, it will, but you're gonna make me take the bumps anyway. So, I think that has helped me. And I think also my background within mixed martial arts. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy at the end of the day, and I'm very excited to be returning to my jiu-jitsu. Has really helped give me a little bit of a speed boost, but it's also held me back at points because, with jujitsu, I'm not used to letting people flip me. That's not exactly my goal when I'm doing jujitsu. I don't want people to flip me, but in professional wrestling, you just need to flip sometimes, you know what I mean? So,
Oh, sure. I mean, there's certain things in a spot you might have to do it just for, reasons you could get hurt, or you might want to do something in the match that's a spot, or just whatever things come up. That's, why people do a flip. Not everybody's a flippy person, but there are instances you may actually have to use it.
Yeah. So, and I've been training at such a short time that I'm very excited for once I can get back training full time and consistently again. I think I'm gonna get back to it quick because I'm starting to generate the muscle memory. I'm starting to understand the little things of how to put someone right in the middle of the ring, like the little psychology things, the little things that just make the wrestling better as a whole in general. And I think I'm slowly starting to get that back.
It's funny you said that here, as I remember going during COVID when I had a lot of the British independent wrestlers that would come on here, and they had gone because in England they couldn't actually wrestle, whereas in the US, depending on the state you were, and you actually never had to take a break from COVID. But the point is that they said, Tom, one of the biggest things I thought about was the first time I take that bump, the first time I'm in that ring, I don't want to be gassed. They're sure they go out, they're working out, they're doing different things at home, they're finding different ways, but you can't replicate the fact that you lost that time and you haven't took that punishment or that bump. When you go back out there and take that first bump, it's going to have been a while. And I kind of I'm reminded of when I had a lot of the British independent guys on before they were coming back. And I'd ask them, what's it going to be like when you step back in that ring and you're going to be gassed? You're going to take that first bump. It's going to feel different. I mean, so have you thought about those things? I mean, you really can't prepare. There's really nothing you can do about it. You have to go through it, but talk about that.
I'm blessed with the connections that I've made. So where my first bump in wrestling won't be back in my training school as much as it should be. Probably, I'm not
Mhm.
confident enough to do that. I have friends with rings. I know where some rings are, and I'm probably going to start my own just a little bit. Obviously, I just got cleared to work out again. I made a
Okay.
cute little like trailer where 3 months out of surgery, I was allowed to start working out again. But my first actual bump in the wrestling ring, the first time I hit the ropes again, will probably be more private setting, maybe a couple friends, maybe like, Doc Holliday, someone like that, someone that will just like, help,
Sure.
you know, correct a couple of small things with me if I do something wrong. I want to get a little bit of confidence back. I'm not saying I'm going to wrestle again, but or not wrestle again before. I just need to like take a bump or two, hit the ropes, roll around a little bit, and just make sure I'm doing everything right again before I run right back to the pro school. And that will help me. I'm not scared of my first bump. I'm just I just would rather do it with a little bit of privacy. That's all.
No, no, and I appreciate that. Again, now obviously there's a big difference here in what you're doing. Some of those guys, again, they didn't have that choice. It was like, okay, they didn't go out there. There was no gym. The gyms in England weren't open. You sure they were working
Exactly.
out from home, doing different things, but they couldn't go out. In some cases, it was. I had guys on. It was like, I think, what was it going to be for you? About over a year, right? Over a year plus before you come back to the ring. For them, it was like, yeah, about a year and a half. In some cases, if it was lucky, guys were 15 months, but most guys that came back, it was like 18 months at a minimum. So, I mean, it's a long
Right.
time. I mean, shoot,
It
your
is.
body almost has to remember that stuff. It's all about the muscle memory you spoke about. Let
Exactly.
me
I
get to
agree.
some more comments here. Hey, y'all, later than I would have liked to be. Well, we say hello to you, my friend, and obviously thank you for joining us. Skulls wants to wish a hometown boy, Wicked, a happy birthday, who retained his title tonight. So happy birthday to you, and I hope you have a great day out there. I'll have a certain wish later on for somebody, but I believe that this individual is here. Now, this individual, maybe you want to say something to or not, is I'm pretty sure somebody that might be related to or knows the current TF Crew YouTube champion of the world, who we referenced, Mr. Angel Santiago.
Yeah, that's him. Of course, it's a picture of him shirtless. That's how you know it's a Puerto Rican prince. If he had a shirt on, it'd be a fake. That certainly is our Puerto Rican prince right there. Saying "you're" with a bunch of R's. It's that absolute specimen of this world.
Well, he's the guy right now in the company, and obviously he's put Syndicate there, and they've got the tag team titles as well.
Yeah, yeah. I he is the guy right now, and I've had issues with him since the beginning of my backyard career, and so him being the guy right now, I don't want to say that it bothers me, but it's always had just a little bit of an itch, a little bit of a scratch that I feel having to say that and see that because, like I said, I've had issues with him since the beginning of my career in wrestling as a whole, and so, but right now, yes, he is the guy. He is a guy. Um, how long will he be the guy for? That's my question. I don't think he's like I said before. I don't think he's taking it seriously.
Well, January 6th isn't that far away. We'll have, I'm sure, several unhinged episodes to get to and see where we go from there leading into the North Haven massacre. And again, for more details on that, you can go to TF Crew on Instagram, TF Crew 69 on YouTube, and get more information. Maybe show up to the show. I mean, that would be certainly a lot of fun. We might even see some friends of the IMF. The IMF just had their Highway to Hell show this past weekend. Omen Soldier had a number of different companies there. So, I mean, let's talk about some other people on the roster that we should keep an eye on, some other names without going into details on a few other wrestlers that we can look forward to watching, let's say, between now and the 6th of January.
Some other guys that I'd love to mention is I love looking at the development of Caster, and I think he's also going nuts. And to put that respectfully, like I said, he lost his first match in the TF crew, lost his hair, lost his second match, got knocked down in 15 seconds. He's going nuts. I'm enjoying watching Caster absolutely go berserk. Somebody else I think you could really watch is Leonidas' rebound after
Yes.
Leonidas failed to capture the TF crew YouTube championship from Angel. I think watching how is he going to rebound from that? Is he going to go on a losing streak? Is he going to get sad, or is he just going to jump right back to the top of the power rankings? So stuff like that is something I'm excited to see. For wrestler wise, I think what's really exciting is a guy like Hardcore, like a 20-year veteran, again, deathmatch guy, but can also work, a standard professional wrestling style. I think someone like Hardcore coming in is also really exciting. I think he's going to help bring us he brings name value. He brings that deathmatch style. He brings a lot to the table. And he's also just like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. Besides that, I'll also throw a shout out to the horrible, horrible Jeff Nova. Absolute just scumbag in and out of the ring, besides the ring, under the ring. No matter where he is, he's a scumbag. Jeff Nova. I had a long-standing feud with him at NEW up in Massachusetts. He is scheduled to be at the show, unfortunately, for everybody in attendance and everybody working on that show. Everybody in the 150-mile radius, it's an unfortunate for. But and finally, I'll go with. I'm really excited to see D Savage. D Savage is one of those guys also from NEW in Massachusetts who's made his pro debut recently in Pennsylvania. And he's one of those guys that is just so talented in the ring, and he's so fluid, he's so buttery, that I think that a platform like TF Crew, which very much posts their content very quickly and is very just quick and like hard hitting, I think that is going to really benefit him and really help display his style more.
Interesting. I'll come back to a couple things here first, and also I want to say hello to this individual without revealing names. And he says, "Total effing chaos is coming." Do you want to elaborate on this for the audience?
So Total effing chaos is a group, wonderful group. Not a wonderful group. It's a group of guys that are bringing punk back to wrestling, and the TF Crew. As the owner of the TF Crew, I wholeheartedly admit that bringing punk back to wrestling, it fits the TF Crew's values.
I agree with you 1,000%. You guys got that gritty punk vibe to it. Actually, I agree with that 1,000%.
So the manager, and I would call him the ringleader if I would, High Pitch Will, is bringing hardcore down. We might possibly see Kyle. Kyle recently was just in the Uncivilized Cup in UWF and has done a lot of stuff in Canada. That's actually where he's from. And then Chuck Steen. Yeah, Chuck Steen. I always say Stein because I'm dumb, but it's Chuck Steen. Chuck Steen. Let me tell you, when you'll recognize him.
Trust me, I butcher names all the time. Through my 5 years, I'm sure people could roll the tape. And the times I've butchered people's names, I'm sure that people could make a blooper reel off. So don't feel too bad.
Yeah, Chuck is, oh my God, Chuck is a maniac. Not only is Chuck a maniac, but Chuck is like one of the top guys, especially in the deathmatch circuit, not even beyond deathmatch, just like a really top guy. You always know who he is. Once you see his hair one time, you'll always know who Chuck is. Chuck has the craziest, biggest mohawk you've ever seen in your life. He truly
that reminds me of he's dead now, God rest his soul, but there was a guy who was a frontman of a band called Static X, Wayne Static. And Wayne Static had this hair. It would go up, and it was during the craze when I was in high school, junior high into high school, of everybody was trying to spike their hair. And this guy, he found a way to spike, like you just said, he spiked his hair. If you look it up, Wayne Static, he would spike his hair like this. It was his hair just went straight up like this. And that was, kind of the thing in those days.
Yeah. This the Total Effing Chaos group is an extremely dangerous group, and I think that the TF Crew is a perfect show for them to display this kind of chaos and this kind of just like dangerousness that they have. They've been touring around like the entire United States. I can't even say in a certain region. They've been going. I see them in California. I'll see them in New York. I'll see them in Chicago. I'll see them in like Michigan. They're everywhere. You know what I mean? Canada, you know what I mean? They are everywhere. These are
Canada does have a scene there. I mean, I know that because one of my buddies is actually up in there in Nova Scotia, so I actually know a little bit about that. Sure.
Yeah, they certainly have a mission, and I think that TF Crew is a great place for them to continue this mission. And there's a lot of people who are going to want to get in their way because at the end of the day in this industry, when you have a bigger name like that, when you have a great social media presence, people want a piece of you. And so I think that one of my favorite parts about bringing in something like Total Effing Chaos is that a lot of people are going to want a piece of them, and I think that creates really exciting matchups, and that creates opportunities for people to prove themselves for possible opportunities for the title.
Absolutely, and I'll come back to comments in a second. But when you have these different types of talent, I'm curious because they've had experience, whether they've been pros, whether they've done things in different states. Was that by design in order to build the company up? Was to attract talent from different places or have pro-like experience? Just that's so fascinating because we deal with companies all the time on Sportswire. Mostly it's like them and their friends or people in the immediate like area they live in, but yet you've attracted talents from different places.
I love having a diverse set of talent, within deathmatch, within strong style, within high flying, like every style you could think of in professional wrestling. I try to attract and have a part of. At the end of the day, the end goal will be to take TF Crew fully professional. And I know we're not there yet. We're in this little bit of a gray area that we call underground, but taking talent like this, like, so they're all from upstate New York, I believe. Really, well, that's where the like the originates from. Obviously, like Chuck is from somewhere else, Kyle's from Canada, but like I believe that like hardcore is the upstate New York guy. Having guys coming from this different area is a lot of companies, especially in the Northeast, will just have their crew guys that are from the area. You know what I mean? It's the same 9 guys. It's a rotating door of the 9 guys. I like to have such a diverse group of people coming from everywhere coming in to compete because that's how you get fresh matchups. There are fresh storylines. Everything is fresh because it's different people having different interactions with other different people that they've never met before. And to me, that adds like a whole new level of excitement, especially like a rotating door. That's why I emphasize such a big roster, because you never know who's going to show up. And I mean, never.
I think that's one of the things why I like the product is that, and I'm glad you brought this up because again, I talk with a lot of wrestlers. I'll have more coverage throughout the week. I'm doing England. I'm doing obviously DBW, which is a company that you'll probably in a short amount of time maybe emulate in some ways. But I think in wrestling at this level, and I say this all the time, especially in Britain with the different little towns there, where in these little towns, these companies are like, they're almost like their WWE. They're almost like their AEW. It's a little bit bigger, the independent scene, than it is here because they mean something in the towns. But the point is that I always thought that, and I've said this here on the show throughout my career, I think if you have an opportunity, put the best talent out there. Let's see who the best person wins. I always think that why not? Because at the end of the day, if you have the same things, yeah, it's great. You can say who's your champion, blah, 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 blah. But I always feel like if there's an opportunity to put people out there and to see who's the best, who's the more marquee talent, I think it helps everybody. It promotes the wrestlers. I think it promotes the company. And I think it attracts more fans. That's why I think, to me, I've said it all the time throughout the years on Sportswire. I'm doing it in 5 years. I've always said, to me, that's a no-brainer.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, there's so many different fans from so many different areas and that just don't know about all these other great wrestling products that it just exists. They just don't know. And so that's
listen,
why
I mean, I actually, have people that tell me that when they watch Sportswire, they learn about these different companies. I mean, so, it's
right.
a big true what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think Sportswire is such a great platform for these companies, for these wrestlers, because, I mean, you are like this unifying force that is just showing everybody and bringing everybody together. Because at the end of the day, all we want is to just promote and show professional wrestling. And what you are doing is you're helping everybody, guys from California, guys from like IMF, you guys, now you have me from the Northeast.
Yeah,
everywhere.
I mean, listen, those guys, to give them a plug for a second, Omen and Soldier and Dirty Donnie, those guys have traveled out of their comfort zone. They've gone to Michigan. They've gone to Wisconsin. They obviously going to work with you guys. And I think that that's what it's all about. And I've said it, I was saying this stuff, a couple years ago, even in the UK, where these little towns would have these companies and the wrestler would be the champion and they would go to the next company, but the company and the promoter wouldn't acknowledge them and they'd have them in this whole different goofy gimmick and because of the politics there. And I get it. I know that promoters have their opinions and they say, well, I'm paying for the show and I'm paying for this. But, I think at the end of the day, cut the BS. The end of the day, people know if you want to have the opportunity to put the best people out there, why not do it? Because at the end of the day, the people on social media who dictate at this level, the people who watch on YouTube, the people who watch this, the people who watch the clips. I mean, look, I get more coverage on the clips on Instagram and Facebook than on the YouTube views. That's basically the same thing as what you guys get in the views. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, the engagements. And I think that may the best person win. Listen, we're all wrestling fans, right? And obviously WWE doesn't work with AEW. AEW doesn't work with MLW and Impact. I mean, so I would say, why not, if we can get an opportunity to see, listen, Omen Black against Angel Santiago. If we can get an opportunity, when Jack Delta was traveling and Jack Delta would wrestle, anybody that, Obey, I mean, or anybody else, or Roach or whatever it might be. I mean, why not see it?
Why not? That is such a great point of why not. That's something that a lot of wrestlers aren't taking seriously enough, is why not? Because everybody wants to stay to their one company, and some people, it bothers me that some people will work.
There's one company with 3 initials, specifically it's a backyard company of 3 initials. I don't want to say who they are because we'll have coverage with them, but there's one company with 3 initials. It's not IMF, it's not DBW, it's not XEW. As the hint, through 3 initials, that they're basically like, they only work with their talent, and they book their talent, and that's it. Nobody else can come in. They basically try to monopolize their product. And the clue is, you guys, I think in UWF have mentioned them before. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's the same guys, and that gets boring to me. I have no other way besides to tell you, but it gets boring to me, and it's just you're trying so hard to create this product with just so little people, such like a not as diverse group as you could have by just like having outside people come in.
Because they feel that, well, I'm getting the views already. It's my company. I set it up. I do all this. There's people that way. Listen, in the British independence, there's a promoter that I don't want to name his. Actually, I'm going to name his name. ALP, who I spent for 2.5 years promoting his brand and product. But because I spoke with somebody else and he didn't like their particular product, said, I'm not coming on to Sportswire because I don't like what you did. Well, what did I do? Bring on a wrestler or a promoter from the company because you didn't like that they wrestled in a death match? Okay, well, you know what? Big deal. Tough. Too bad. I had another guy. We're gonna actually go down the pike. Simon Hill. Odyssey Pro Wrestling announcer. I didn't want to see that I was going to follow up another company, and so it happens all the time. And this political stuff, to me, it's all a waste of people's time.
I wholeheartedly agree. I hate the politics in wrestling, and we're not. None of us. Some people worship their backyard company, or they're just like smaller underground company, whatever it is. Like it's the WWE. They worship it, and they're like, "There's nothing better. We are the pinnacle. We are the peak." And none of us are. None of us are. You know what it is? WWE. You know what I mean?
100%. But there are people that go and think that they're basically like in their own head. They're Madison Square Garden. They're WrestleMania 40, and they at the end of the day, when they go home, how many people stop you on the street corner? How many people really know?
Exactly. That's why I believe in collaboration within wrestling.
100%.
Collaboration, teamwork. Everybody comes together. If we all come together,
teamwork makes the dream.
Literally, we're going to create something beautiful by putting so many different, just like fantastic talents together, something that nobody's ever seen, because people keep doing stuff that people have already seen, and that's my biggest issue. Let's get different, let's get hard nosed, let's get angry, hard hitting. Let's change this up, man. Like, why? There's no reason that we all just can't work together. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, the WWE is the top in the industry.
Sure.
None of us on the scale, even remotely close to mine, are at the top of the industry. There's no reason why we all shouldn't just be working together and not only just helping each other, because I have audience members that watch my product that probably don't watch any other wrestling product.
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. I agree with you.
It doesn't hurt for me to promote another company, because then they can enjoy multiple wrestling companies, because that company will do the same exact thing for me, because they have people exclusively watching their products. And if they don't want to come over and watch, they don't have to.
It's always about networking. People ask me all the time, well, how have you survived, doing this? Well, I said, it was always going out there, putting my name out there. Before I did a lot of the wrestling stuff, I would go out and just knock on doors in my community, pass out my business cards. I helped out a lot of people. I have a lot of contacts, but no, you have to do those things. Let me get to some comments here, because people certainly do want to talk, and I don't want to take up everybody's time. We don't like Static X. Yeah, I'm not a big Static X fan. It was just a reference on the hairstyle. I mean, I had a buddy of mine that was huge into Static X, but it really wasn't my cup of tea. It's just more of an example. Seeing the TF crew become what it has after all the Twitch streams has been really cool. Gabe's a huge inspiration. I wish him and the TF crew all the best. Can you talk about maybe the Twitch streams? Because that's something that I think we haven't covered here. So what was that about?
So I used to be just like a standard content creator. I'd make like Minecraft videos and, silly little video game content and stuff like that. And I would do that on the TF Crew YouTube. I had a Twitch channel that still has like 2,000 followers. I'm proud of that Twitch channel. Okay. And that's originally what the TF Crew was. I've always been a huge wrestling fan, so I used to do some wrestling content on there. And as I got more and more into the business as a wrestler, I was like, I think I'm going to host a one-off show. I'm like, you know what? We're going to do a big one-off show. It's going to be like a big party. And that was the Backyard Bash. And then, like a hill, I just kept falling down. I'm like, all right, now I'm a full-fledged promoter, actually running consistent shows. Oh, man. We're looking for now, oh, no, we were buying a rig. Oh, no, we're getting venues. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like I fell down the hill and I kept rolling. And Rybread has been like one of my supporters from the start, from like 2018. Back when back from when I was just like playing Minecraft and screaming into my microphone. And you know what I mean?
Well, that's about about the time I started in 2000, well, the end of 2018 to 2019. That's when I started at this, so I could appreciate that.
Yeah, so Rybrad's here, been here for a long time, and it's always such a nice thing seeing Rybrad, someone like Rybrad, stick around, and we stay in contact. Where he tells me about how he's like some of his troubles or some of his like bright spots of trying to get into professional wrestling himself. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
And anything I can do to help, I always try to help.
Oh, yeah, and we certainly support him. And I also want to make the formal announcement that we'd certainly love to talk to some of the talent here in the company and TF Crew. Certainly in the coming weeks leading up to the January 6th show, I'll have plenty of time, certainly after the first week of November. So we hope to have coverage of the company if we're so kind to be able to get that allowance to have that opportunity. So I'll look forward to that. And he says, we are dangerous. Yeah, I definitely got the hint that you guys are dangerous, and I definitely look forward to watching. You guys want to say hello to one of my other regular listeners, that is Mr. Ron, a Green Bay Packers fan. Sorry, Ron, Packers lost against the Broncos, but he says good evening, Tom. So also Caitlin wants to say preach. We'll certainly do that. Ego has probably ruined more money-making opportunities in wrestling than anything else. Yeah, I mean, there's no question that in wrestling, there's a lot of what they call, and I'll say it, and I won't spend much time on it because I want to obviously spend the last 20 or so minutes promoting the current product, but as somebody that's worked in the world of politics, there's a lot of tribalism and fiefdoms in that world, and there's a lot of that in wrestling. Wrestling is, and I can tell you from firsthand, working with a lot of the professional guys, the underground guys, the YouTube guys, there is no question that wrestling, certainly, it's a disease worth of tribalism, fiefdoms, politics stuff that ultimately the only losers is the wrestlers. It's the wrestlers, it's the fans, and everybody else. And that's why there are certain companies that obviously think the way they do. But thankfully, the TF Crew is not one of those places. That's why you want to follow the TF Crew here on Instagram at the TF Crew, YouTube at TF Crew 69. You also give Gabe a follow. Make sure you check him out on Instagram at Gabe Sayers DW. Make sure that he is following him here and all the great things that the company is doing. All right, so for the allotted amount of time, because I know you're under the weather, I don't want to keep you too much longer. So obviously,
appreciate that.
Let's talk about one or two things most people that are listening tonight should look forward to in watching unhinged shows between, let's say, now and the 6th of January.
So the unhinged shows will probably slow down. There'll probably be another 2 or 3 episodes before it actually slows down as we work towards the build of this next big show, because we're really throwing all hands on deck, all effort into building this show. Like I said, this next upcoming episode is coming out in 2 days. The 6-man tag is absolutely fantastic. We do get to hear from, actually, it's Damian Blanco that we're going to be hearing from as he discusses the matchup between Obey and the Puerto Rican Prince. We're going to hear from the Puerto Rican Prince talking about the 6-man tag match in the main event of Unhinged. We hear from Caster, Leonidas, and Doc Holliday all at once about the 6-man tag match as well. You know what I mean? So it's a very fun episode. The 6-man tag match is very fun. It's a lot.
Yeah, I always like those kind of matches because it's almost like it's a build to the big show. It's got that certainly, feeling where it's like, okay, now you're getting close. I always love those like tag matches where everybody's in the ring with each other almost. I always like that stuff.
I think one of my favorite parts about when I was rewatching the episode is, man, personality shines in this match. You get to see a lot of personality. It's one of my favorite parts about wrestling. And so I'm really excited for people to see like the personality that really shines during the 6-man tag match.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Bringing it now to I'll just spin it towards like the North Haven Massacre. I think for the North Haven Massacre, I'll go ahead and reveal a match. Just let's make it fun. You could say that you were the first one to break. I've
had these before. All right, so we'll certainly. I guess you're in the business of promoting, so we'll make sure that this is certainly put out there on social medias after we're off the air. So for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, Mr. Gabe Sayers, tell us the exclusive here on Sportswire Radio when it comes to involving the North Haven Massacre, January 6, 2024.
So we were talking about Total F and Chaos. I'm not sure if I believe that was High Pitch Will that was in here. I'm not sure if he's still here.
Yes, I think we had that a little while ago. Yep.
Hardcore from Total F and Chaos. Like I said, he's been traveling around, like I told you, like Canada, California, everywhere. Yes. I wanted to throw him up against a test. This is a first time matchup. They were in a tournament together, but never interacted, never faced off. Is going to be Jimmy Controversy, who's known from GTS, Pro Wrestling Venom, Carnage Cup. Jimmy Controversy will be going 1-on-1 with Hardcore in a death match. That's a really exciting match to me, and I feel like they're both going to have, especially once I reveal to them that they're wrestling each other, they will each have of words to say to each other because it's Punk versus Controversy, and Controversy hates Punk. You know what I mean? So it's these two very different ideals going head to head together. And how will the rest of Total F and Chaos play into this match? To me, this brings into a very interesting dynamic.
Wow, well, ladies and gentlemen, certainly this could be Controversy creates YouTube views and cash and social media engagements, because we are going to see a match here that was first mentioned here. So you certainly want to tune in and make sure you follow TF Crew, and especially watch it on YouTube at TF Crew 69. You heard it here first, the first of many exclusives. So certainly that'll be something we're looking forward to on January the 6th, the North Haven Massacre. It used to be famous for what they would call the Boston Massacre, but this is going to be even bigger than any of those Boston massacres here. So let me get to a few more comments. Want to say hello to Soldier GP. Obviously, the guys at the IMF had a very successful Highway to Hell show, and we imagine to see some of the IMF on the 6th of January. We'll definitely be hearing about that very soon. Ron wants to say very quickly, we're doing terrible this season. I'll be focusing more on the end of the NASCAR season, which I really am not a NASCAR guy. I know we're talking wrestling real quick, but the Phillies and the start of the Sixers season on Tuesday. Yes, good luck to all that stuff here, but obviously we certainly are very excited about the 6th of January. So, I mean, is there anything else that you want to say about the company that we haven't got a chance to plug here in the remaining minutes?
I'm a talker. I'm a talker. So
I would talk longer with you because I know you're sick, and I've been there, and I can hear it in your voice. I literally took me about a month to get over this, so I know the pain you're going through.
I appreciate that. I think I always talk about what sets us apart. I think our social media game is obviously one of the stronger ones.
You guys have a very strong YouTube following, very strong.
And I think that's something that really helps us pull us apart. I really enjoy that this company literally used to be TF Crew. I'll just say, not in this company. The TF Crew used to be something I used to make funny video game videos about, and I posted on TF Crew, and I did okay. You know what I mean? I got a little bit of traction, but because I never really dove into a niche, I never really hooked anywhere, and so I never really grew that much. So finally, I just hooked into the wrestling niche. And when I hooked into the wrestling niche, it became just like cliche, like how to become a wrestler video, or, Gabe Sayers highlights versus Mikey Anarchy, fat guy number 12. You know what I mean? Just like whatever. And then I got more into it and I realized, holy crap, this thing is turning into like my actual company with the way I'm like posting on it and the way I'm promoting this thing. It's like, it went from video games to just general wrestling content that was more like based on me as a wrestler, to now just like company content with like promos and shows and stuff like that. And so you're not really going to see like videos of like Gabe Sayers versus Roach anymore on it, unless it's, under TF Crew sanctioned banner. But that's why I started a second channel, so I could like post all that crap over there, feel like I'm still getting it out to the world if they really want to see it. And now I really, like Rybread mentioned before, the transition this company has gone through from funny Twitch clips to, how to become a wrestler with my like clickbaity thumbnail to professional wrestling
People
company.
like that stuff though on social media. People they like these little shorts. They like these little vines. I always say all the time, I think that people like when I do the hype videos or the short 2-minute clips, because sometimes people like that particular moment that stands out most. I think people like that in general.
Yeah, and that's why I'm looking to also diversify the content at the same point, because I was lucky enough. I have little equipment that I'm using now to like add to it. Like I said, I'm a film miner, so I'm adding like little film elements into the videos now. I'm working on adding like even just like slightly comical interviews into it. Like I have a interview microphone. I'm working on starting to interview my own talent first, and just like adding like it doesn't have to just be like full blown comedy, but just have like the slight hint or edge of comedy and stuff like that. Just kind of helps diversify the content, so it's not just wrestling show.
Well, I'll tell you what I would like to see is I got to watch a chance real quick before we get to closing thoughts. I would like to see more of a commentating announce type of thing. I mean, we haven't seen that so much in these matches. I mean, that would be one thing. I'm sure you'll add that certainly for the North Haven Massacre. I'm sure those things to be added, but I think that's kind of the one thing, because like everybody always in certain companies, they always talk about the announcing or the commentary, and that's always kind of like one of those things. I mean, like the companies with the certain initials, and I'm not saying don't. How can I say this very kindly? Don't obviously imitate like some companies, but certainly people like the announcing. I think I think DBW does a good job, but the XCW really does the best of them. I'm going to certainly mention, because that's a company I hope that you certainly grow into being like in terms of what they do, where they have a phenomenal product. And I think I have no doubt that you'll certainly get there and some. But obviously, I could talk to you all day, but I realize you are under the
Appreciate
weather. And
that.
I think we got a synopsis of what this year. We have a big Unhinged show coming up here on the TF Crew YouTube page. We also have, again, January the 6th. I cannot stress enough, if you are in the Connecticut area, if you were near by any chance in New Haven. Now, for those that are listening and watching that know Connecticut like I do, that is further up in Connecticut. So even if you are downstate in Stamford or Darien, Greenwich, Old Greenwich, where I used to live, and you can certainly still make that trek, make that trip up there, and certainly go and DM the guys here at the TF Crew and get that ticket. Because if you think about it, it's going to be the first week in January. What are you going to be doing? It's going to be cold. You got nothing to do. You're going to be moaning. You're going to be in front of the heater. Why not get out of the house, go out and watch some wrestling? You're going to see some pros. You're going to see some up-and-comers. You're going to see a mix of deathmatch kings. You're going to see everything else in between. This is a company, I promise you, you're going to be hearing a lot more of. And certainly there is no better way than to start 2024 than by having here the TF Crew's North Haven Massacre to get a front row seat and summon. It has been a tremendous honor to have you. And like I said, I could ask you a few more questions, but I see, because I've went through it, I literally, today is like the first day that I'm like just about normal. I hope you don't have to deal with it as long as I did. I'm going to pray for you on that. I am a reverend.
I appreciate that.
Trust me, you don't want to. I went 29 days, and it was like, when am I ever going to get? When am I ever going to get better? It was like people were like, "Oh, you sure you don't have COVID?" I'm like, "No, I got a COVID test. I don't have COVID. It's just I can't shake it." But I hope you don't have to go through that. So I want to give you the floor now. Give you some closing thoughts, champ. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? You are definitely a superstar. You are definitely a young man who's got a great head on his shoulders. I have no doubt you will certainly do a lot more things ahead. We'll definitely have you back on before the year is out, and fire away.
I appreciate the platform just to be able to speak. Obviously, that's such a gracious opportunity that you've given me. So I appreciate you for first and foremost. A quick plug just to get it out the way. I do also post on, if you just look up Gabe Sayers and do a tiny bit of scrolling past all the wrestling stuff, I do have my own personal channel where I'm posting stuff like mini movies and documentaries that I'm making throughout.
I'm a movie guy, so I should check that out.
I appreciate that. I just recently interviewed. It's not a perfect documentary, but I really love the story behind it. I'm still learning, So really enjoy the story I had with Sunset Steve Garcia. So you can find that on the Gabe Sayers channel. He's an independent wrestler in the New Haven area. Fantastic guy. You might even see him on the Massacre. But fantastic story he told.
On YouTube. I just subscribed.
I appreciate that. So like I said, it's some like little mini movie stuff there, but now we'll move past the plug. Hey, listen, if anyone's out there that's great at commentary, please come help me out. I have the being to do it. We've only ever done it.
I actually get offered all the time. I could do it, but unfortunately, I don't have time. I literally, I have so many of these. I'd be honest with you. I've had the British independents offer me. I've even been offered the money. I'm like, I don't need the money. I just don't have the time. It's like I've actually been offered the money. I'm one of the few people that said, "Nah, I don't want the money. I don't need it. I would do it for free, but I don't have the time because I do this so much."
Exactly.
I get offered. I've had like 6 companies offer me, "Hey, do you want to do commentary?" And I'm like, I would.
I wish I could. Yeah, I wish.
Can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone out there, like I do commentary for all the big shows. So like Backyard Bash has commentary, Glory has commentary, Massacre will have commentary. It's just I got to start working on getting commentary into the Unhinged episodes. So besides that, it's been an honor to be here. Just some TF Crew wrestlers I think that are really exciting, and I could spew off names for days, the names that most people won't even know, obviously. But people that we talk about, like the Puerto Rican Prince, I think he'll do great on here.
Oh, I think obvious reasons. I watched him. And I looked at his content, and I was like, yeah, that's a guy that I think would fit in on Sportswire. That's a guy, to me, right off the bat, that we definitely want to speak with between now and the next few weeks. That's a guy automatically that he is on my radar. So I will say it right out there for the champion. Definitely, if he would like an invitation to come onto Sportswire, I would certainly grant him the floor. Let me just put it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm very excited to be able to send some great speakers over here to talk about themselves.
Yeah, please give me the good ones, because there's certain companies with 3 initials that have given me guys on here, and I think Soldier and Omen know who they are, and it's like I've had people message me like, what were you doing? I'm like, well, I mean, we were live. I mean, what am I? I mean, I was like, no, it wasn't you. I'm like, well, like I've even had, I've had pro wrestlers come on here, and the promoters giving me the spot, and and it was like they couldn't talk. In England, I had this guy on. I don't want to say his name because he's a phenomenal talent. He probably will be stateside, and he came on here, and it was like they didn't have it. He just,
You
so
just didn't have. Some people just don't have it, unfortunately.
people
Yeah,
just, people just don't. Unfortunately have the gift of gab. Unfortunately, I was a joke. Unfortunately, have the gift of gab. I always like to say, because I was a kid, my father would always say, "Well, you're going to be in politics one day," and I shrugged him off. And then I got into politics and kind of made it. And then now I'm doing this. And that was the other thing. They said, "Well, you're going to go and do broadcasting because you always love to speak." And well, now I'm doing this. So, but it's here nor there. It's not about me, ladies and gentlemen. It is about Gabe Sayers. Gabe is a real trooper. He's a fighter. He's a definition of what's to come here in the world of wrestling. He's an up-and-coming standout. He's got a heart of a champion. He is certainly literally the definition of somebody you want to get behind in, and that's why you want to subscribe one more time to YouTube at TF Crew 69, his personal page, YouTube at Gabe Sayers, Instagram, TF Crew, and support him and this company, because I cannot stress enough about how big this event is going to be on here, January the 6th. The North Haven Massacre. It's just a little over 2 months away. So everybody might be thinking about now Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. It's all going to be gone in the blink of an eye. And Gabe is going to be here, and many other talents. And this wonderful, very diverse, unique company will have to offer. And that's why we want to support him. My friend, I can't thank you enough. Congratulations on all the success. A rising tide always lifts all boats. And I have no doubt that A, your health will get lifted eventually one day by the rising tide, but also B, your company, because of the amount of talent and the heart that you've literally and physically put into it, will certainly be the same thing. Get well, my friend, and we'll speak with you and the rest of your company very soon.
Thank you so much again.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Gabe Sayers. He is the owner. He is the CEO of a company called the TF Crew. They have certainly shown why. They are the kings of underground wrestling, and their biggest show to date will be airing January the 6th. We even had a match revealment for here. Stay tuned to Instagram in a little while for that announcement. And Gabe here is also going to be talking about other things you'll see on YouTube's TF Crew 69 TV, including unhinged episodes. We have a few more of those after that. So certainly stay tuned to all of their socials for more details. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio, the #1 global radio station, and your voice of all wrestling. If you're on Sportswire Radio's internet radio station, stay tuned. You'll go back to your regularly scheduled program. Probably be more reruns of Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer until we get more podcasts back on. It will be at midnight, 12 o'clock. And if you're up, go listen to that. I'll be back here Monday night, 9:30 p.m. with the Bone Shaker. Tuesday night, Mr. Judgment himself, whose alter ego just won the VTW YouTube Championship. So you can tune in for that at 8:30. And then Wednesday, I'll be here for my UK fans. 3 o'clock, Walker Wall Street ahead of his match in CCW against Hybrid. And then Friday, same time, same bat channel with Rico Justice, who just wrestled the owner of Cutlery Championship Wrestling, Mr. James Barris. Until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.